paranormal interests many of us. It's a topic that in recent years has gained a large following. This could be due to the fact that more programs featuring the paranormal have been shown on TV, and that information surrounding the topic can easily be found in the modern day. Others, however, say they got interested in the topic due to having an experience of their own, something that stuck with them through their life. One of the most frustrating things about these encounters is that the eyewitness is usually left with questions. And not only that, but when they do open up, many people don't believe them. One of the positive things about experiencing the paranormal, though, is that there's many others who've gone through similar things. And there's actual researchers that have looked into the phenomenon and have said that it's very much real. The best ways to back up your claims with evidence. Over the years, various photographs and videos have been presented to back up claims of hauntings. Although some are obviously fake, there are some out there that have even confused skeptics. One interesting photograph is this one that was taken by two girls. As with the majority of these photographs, it's hard to track down a detailed description. But those that have looked into it have said it shows a mysterious apparition in the left corner. Interestingly, some who saw this photograph said it does look like a tall apparitionist standing above the gowns, and that it matches many of the descriptions given by eyewitnesses. One psychic posted the image to a Facebook group and posted the following statement. I thought this photograph might be of interest to some of you who have had an experience. What many people don't realize is taking a photograph of an entity can sometimes be the easy part. It's identifying the individual that's tough. I've used my abilities, and I think that in this photograph is that of a man, and that during his life he experienced a lot of pain. The fear in his eyes tell a story. This is a common occurrence with many entities, and it's one of the reasons why they get stuck on this plane. The pain they are feeling or went through whilst on this side is holding them back from moving on. I had this with my husband when he experienced something creepier once. He used to work inside an old museum as a night guard, and he would always tell me about his experiences while on the night shift. On various occasions, he would complain about seeing large shadows moving across the walls and ceilings, and that whenever he witnessed one of these, it would send a shiver up his spine. During one of these incidents, he said he was on his laptop during one of the late shifts, something that was common to do as the night shifts would sometimes drag. His shift was coming to an end, and so he logged off and began to shut down his laptop. However, once the screen went blank in the reflection, he could see a towering figure behind him. He said he didn't turn around out of pure fear and even started crying, something I'd only seen my husband do on a few occasions. Once he made his way out of the room, he called me and explained what had happened. I immediately told him to get out of the building and come home. It was something that really affected him, and after this experience he didn't go back. Since then he said he's had nightmares about the tall being he saw that night, and that during this dream it plays out the same way, shutting the laptop down and seeing the large humanoid standing behind him. I've researched this, and some suggested that he may have been marked. Whatever the case, it's changed his outlook on the paranormal. Interestingly, it's not just houses, old buildings, and cemeteries that are allegedly haunted. Roads and cars also make this list, with people over the years coming forward with their own mysterious encounters. Not only do they detail that they've seen apparitions on these roads, but when they go back to investigate what they witnessed, the apparition has mysteriously vanished, are common traits in these sorts of hauntings. Perhaps one of the most famous haunted roads is that of Surrey, England's A3. It's here that people have claimed to have seen mysterious apparitions during the night, and some investigators have said they've been able to trace these hauntings back to a specific event in the past. Christmas is a time of feasting and parties, handing out presents to loved ones, and appreciating everything and everyone around you. It's a time when families get together, while for others it's a time to mend bridges with lost ones and loved ones. However, if you're close to Surrey in England, you may be aware of the haunted A3 motorway and the mysterious stories surrounding it. It was a dark December Sunday night in 2002, when a police force in Surrey, England received a flurry of calls. Drivers on the A3 driving south reported seeing a car lose control before leaving the road in a horrendous accident. The police took down the details, and prepared to head out to investigate the incident. Little did they know this would be the root of a ghost story that would go down forever in Surrey folklore. The police attended the scene, ready to come across the scene of an awful crash, and gearing themselves up to reveal some terrible news to her family. What they found, however, was incredibly puzzling. Turns out they had actually found nothing. Witnesses said they'd seen the car swerve off the road, its headlights blazing as it plunged over the embankment into the woodland. At the reported location of the accident, police found no evidence of any wreckage. There was no car debris or tire marks on the road, and the search for both the car and the driver yielded nothing. Even the woodland was untouched. An officer decided to go further into the undergrowth, and it was there that he made a startling discovery. Car headfirst in the undergrowth, the door smashed in, clearly the consequence of a motor accident of the same nature as the one reported. Except there was something odd about this scene. Spider webs hung from the car's side mirrors. Leaves completely covered the car and weeds grew around the wheels. Rather shockingly still, rather than a newly discovered body, the police officer stumbled upon a badly decomposed skeleton. This was not the scene of an accident that had occurred a few hours previously. It had happened almost half a year earlier. It turns out the person in the car had only been a 21-year-old man, reported missing by his brother several months ago. Police had no idea where to begin their search. He'd last been seen out of town, but nobody knew he'd then driven to Surrey. Remarkably, the descriptions of the crash from those December witnesses were completely consistent with how police believed this crash from the months before had occurred. Those witnesses on the motorway that December night reported seeing a car leave the road in what they believed was a real accident. Police concurred with all the testified set of events, apart from, however, the actual date of occurrence. Is it that the crash that the driver's witness was in fact a ghostly replay? The man's body was found inside the vehicle, where severely injured he tried to crawl his way out of the undergrowth and back to the road for someone to find him. He couldn't make it up the steep embankment. It was then discovered later that a call was attempted from the man to his brother. His brother did not pick up, and again this man's effort to be found went unanswered. So perhaps as the final roll of the dice, months later on a gloomy winter's night, this ghost crash was replayed when witnesses drove that same road and would be sure to find him. Having seen the final vision of the crash and the man's final moments as he headed over the embankment to the fate that awaited him. This isn't uncommon either. For years, people have been telling similar stories, with one of the most common ones being that of the mysterious lady in white. There are various stories that involve this mysterious woman, from the experiences of people who've given this lady a ride home, to others that have said she seemingly appeared out of nowhere. One thing which is common with many of these types of stories is that she insists she sits in the back seat. Some have come forward and said that while in the back seat she talks to herself, while others have said she simply stares into the rearview mirror. This has made some feel uncomfortable during the ride to the address, but most have said they haven't experienced anything bad. However, others have come forward with a different tale, with one person saying that while she was sitting in the back seat, she sobbed the whole way to the address. Wanting to get the woman out of their car, the individual turned around to tell her they had arrived. However, they soon noticed that she was nowhere to be seen. Interestingly, another individual said they had a conversation with the woman and that she detailed she was with her boyfriend on a lake. However, they soon got into an accident. After this, though, the woman didn't say anything and just continued to sob. The man felt sorry for her, and so went to the boot of the car to grab her a raincoat. Again, during the journey to the address, she didn't say anything. When they reached the destination, there was only a raincoat on the back seat. The mysterious woman had vanished. There was reported to be an imprint on the car seat where she'd been sitting. What do you make of this photograph, and do you believe in the paranormal? Zoos are known to be fun places loved by people of all ages. Visiting a zoo allows you to see animals from all around the world in just one place. Zoos also provide plenty of education for people who want to learn more about animals. Although many zoos save animals and help endangered species, some can also be places of torture for these animals. Too many different animals suffer both physically and mentally when they're kept in poorly managed zoos. They even experience mental illnesses similar to humans. For some of these places, their only concern is making money, not taking care of the animals. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 zoo discoveries. Bronx Zoo's most dangerous animal. In 1963, the Bronx Zoo in New York opened an exhibit called The Most Dangerous Animal in the World. The exhibit was located at the Great Apes House between the mountain gorillas and the orangutans. Visitors could see the name of the exhibit above what appears to be a window with bars. However, instead of a caged animal like one would expect to see, they would see their own reflection behind the bars. The description below the mirror explained how the animal visitors saw was increasing in numbers rapidly, and it had the ability to kill off any other type of animal, even entire species of animals. In fact, this animal had already done so with several species of animals. It went on to explain how this animal could even destroy all life on Earth. The purpose of this exhibit was to show people how powerful mankind was, and how dangerous they could be. Humans have full control over other animals and the whole planet. What's worse is that humans are constantly in a power struggle with each other as well. This exhibit was meant to remind people that humans are literally destroying other species and their homes. To keep this fact in people's mind, the zoo also posted signs in other areas as well, warning people that in the next 20 years there could be no more wildlife left in the world. The ultimate goal of this exhibit was to move people to action and to encourage them to support wildlife conservation. Deforestation and the destruction of habitats have been an unfortunate trend in the history of humanity. This destruction takes natural homes away from animals and therefore destroys the animals themselves as well. Humans pollute animal habitats, destroy them to build more homes and businesses, and illegally kill animals. This exhibit made news all over the world and opened people's eyes to the power they had and the difference they could make. It allowed people to reflect on the impact they had and the bigger impacts they could make in the future if they worked to make changes in the world. Fortunately, many endangered species can be found at the Bronx Zoo and many animals are born every year. They've always made it a goal to increase the number of endangered species and return them back to their natural habitats. But this wouldn't be possible if their natural habitats were gone. They realized it would take the support of as many people as possible to save these animals and their homes. Honey the dolphin in 2005. A bottlenose dolphin called Honey was captured by hunters in Japan. She was finally sent to the Inubasaki Marine Park, where she spent the rest of her life. She was brought there with a group of other dolphins, and they spent their time being trained and performing shows for guests. 12 years later, however, she was the only one left from the group. She soon became known as the world's loneliest dolphin. In 2018, the marine park closed for good because of a decline in visitors, and the owners disappeared, supposedly to hide from predators. Honey was left alone in the park, along with a number of penguins, fish, and reptiles. Employees were instructed to continue feeding the animals enough to keep them alive, but they didn't continue keeping the tanks clean or caring for them properly. The park never made any efforts to move these animals to a facility that could be better for them. While living in the oceans, dolphins are able to swim great distances every day with a whole family of other dolphins. They're very playful and extremely social, and they enjoy exploring together. Unfortunately, Honey was taken from this life, and instead could only swim around the same tank by herself day after day. Some activists were able to observe her for several hours one day. They reported that in a span of 2 hours, she barely moved 10 feet. She simply floated and let the water move her around. They noticed she was performing actions that were repetitive and compulsive, which showed how depressed she was getting from living alone in captivity all those years. The government wouldn't take action and find care for the animals that had been abandoned. Local activists managed to take pictures of Honey in her tank, which was now considered too dirty to live in for any animal, but they were still unable to get the authorities to do something. Many described the conditions the animals were left in as increasingly miserable and life-threatening. News of Honey the dolphin went viral on social media. Users were outraged at the way the aquarium owners had treated Honey and begged high authorities to help save Honey. One hotel resort even offered to give the animals a new home, but nothing ever came from these efforts. The International Marine Mammal Project got in touch with the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums. The association had already been made aware of the animals, but because the owners were gone, they weren't allowed to take them. An organization called the Dolphin Project also attempted to rescue Honey and the other animals several times. They found out the aquarium had been sold in 2019, and thus Honey was sold with it. The Dolphin Rescue tried once again to buy Honey so they could rehome her to a better and safer place. But these attempts came to a halt when they realized Honey likely wouldn't survive much longer. Honey died on March 29, 2020, alone in her cage. Dolphins are held in captivity in aquariums all over the world. They have no room to explore and are kept away from their families and are quickly becoming depressed because of it. The Dolphin Project has discovered many dolphins in similar situations to Honey. They're able to rescue and release some of the dolphins back into the ocean, but not all of them are this fortunate. Honey's story gained attention and support from people all around the world, and even sparked people to seek changes in Japan for these animals. Honey has now become the face of dolphin captivity. Glue Ham is one of the 6 elephants that had been living at a crocodile farm and zoo in Thailand. While living at this farm, his owners trained him to perform tricks for paying tourists, but they kept him chained to a pole. His right leg began to hang limp so he couldn't put any weight on it, and he had wounds all over his body from lying on the ground so often. Glue Ham was injured both physically and mentally from his time at the crocodile farm. National Geographic learned about the elephant and a petition spread around so they could help him. Even though this was signed by more than 70,000 people, his owner still had to agree to let him go. But this elephant was the worst case they had ever seen, so they all knew they couldn't give up. After many negotiations, several organizations were able to join together to rescue Glue Ham. He arrived at the Elephant Nature Park in northern Thailand in 2019. He didn't mind all the new people around him, and they were glad to learn he hadn't lost his appetite. He was checked by a vet and given anti-inflammatory and pain medications for his leg. The vet also treated the wounds that were able to be treated. After receiving a balanced diet and proper rest, his energy increased and he learned to enjoy his new home. After a month, his leg was almost completely healed, other than having a stiff joint, but his back legs were still weak. He was also eating well and getting back to a healthy weight. He's kept isolated from other elephants due to his lack of social skills. When he was introduced to other elephants, he avoided them, which likely stems from the fact he was always kept alone at the crocodile farm. However, they still hope he'll be able to live among the other elephants in the future. For years, he had been exploited and used to earn money. Unfortunately, this treatment of elephants isn't an unusual practice. Hundreds of elephants suffer all the time because of the wildlife tourism industry, and so it would take a great deal of work to rescue them and make real changes to prevent any more from suffering the same way. So what do you make of these zoo discoveries? The topic of ghosts is one that's been debated for years. There's those that believe in the topic, those who have claimed to have experienced something strange which led them to believe, and those that state the topic lacks solid evidence. Various studies have been conducted, though, that show that many people do believe in the paranormal. For example, one study that was conducted back in 2015 by Chapman University showed that over 40% of Americans believe that places can be haunted by spirits. For years, people across the planet have reported encountering otherworldly apparitions and other unexplainable phenomena. Various photographs have been presented which allegedly show mysterious beings, and those who study this subject have said that certain cameras are able to capture anomalies, and that these apparitions could be behind what an individual is experiencing. Some of the most common entities captured on camera includes that of the orb, the shadow person, and the lady in white. But now scientists have said that a new imaging technique could once and for all prove if ghosts are real. The technique is known as ghost imaging, and these special cameras take photos of the actual light bouncing off an object. It relies on a theory called quantum entanglement, to take photos of objects by recording the photons with a quantum link to others that did bounce off of it. Scientists still have varying theories on just how this works, so no clear explanation can be given. The camera itself uses highly sensitive camera beams that are connected by quantum entanglement. One beam hits the object. The other beam that does not hit the object is recorded. This new technique has been tested and scientists have said the results look promising. Due to this camera that relies on an object that gives off light, many have put forward the theory this could capture spirits. Various paranormal researchers have said that ghosts are actual beings and can give off a sign they're there, whether that's interacting with what's around them or being captured on things like cameras. If what people are seeing is genuine, then this new camera technique should be able to pick up on them and end the argument once and for all whether ghosts are real or not. Over 52% of people living in the United Kingdom believe that ghosts are real, with a lower percentage saying that they've encountered something they deem as paranormal. One of the best pieces of evidence is that of photographs, and there hasn't been a shortage of alleged ghost photographs that have been shared over the years. One of the issues people have is trying to work out if the photograph is genuine or not. This hasn't stopped believers from coming forward with their encounters and theories. However, some scientists have said they've worked out why people report seeing ghosts. A Canadian neuroscientist has studied the paranormal for some years now and has suggested that what people are seeing comes down to the electromagnetic field. He suggests that magnetic fields which we can't detect on a conscious level are behind many strange experiences, as this effect can make it seem like there's someone else in the room with you, when in reality all that's happening is unusual activity patterns in the brain. There are those that don't believe this, however, and say the tool, though this does likely explain some encounters. There's others who have seen things and state that it has nothing to do with the brain playing tricks. Ghosts, spirits, angels, demons, and many other such paranormal entities have captivated the minds of humans. For years we've heard stories about these mysterious entities, and a few of us have even experienced them firsthand. Despite all the advancements made in science and technology, and despite scientists being able to unravel some of the most complex mysteries in the universe, it seems we've completely skipped over one particular field of study. It's the study of the paranormal. Many ancient civilizations studied paranormal activities, ways of interacting with different paranormal entities, and harnessing their power for the greater good. It's believed that some of the ancient civilizations had mastered the art of real magic, and that's they could not only cast extremely effective spells, but it's said they were also able to summon some of the most powerful paranormal entities. However, our civilization seems more inclined towards technology and things that can be explained according to the various laws of science. But from time to time, different paranormal entities seem to give hints of their presence one way or the other. Interestingly, one place you wouldn't expect there to be signs of the paranormal is that of our oceans. Oceans cover more than 70% of Earth's surface, and according to popular belief, ghosts, spirits, and other paranormal entities tend to reside at places that are far from human population. This makes oceans and the numerous small islands that lie in them an ideal place for such entities. Throughout history, many sailors have reported seeing strange phenomena in different parts of the ocean. However, there's one phenomenon that has happened over and over again, and yet it can't be explained by anyone. Over the past couple of centuries, there have been a number of reports of ghost ships sailing around the world. Some of the most famous ghost ships include the Octavius, the Flying Dutchman, and the Maristel AST. There have been many theories about the ghost ships. Some theories point to sea pirates taking down crew members and stealing their belongings to mysterious circumstances that can't be explained. However, all the theories have been dismissed because of lack of credible evidence, and to this day, no one can say for sure about what happened to some of the most famous ghost ships in history. There is one theory that holds an unknown paranormal entity responsible for the ghost ships. It's believed that some mysterious entity resides in the deepest pockets and some of the most isolated islands in the world. And sometimes this paranormal entity preys on the crew of the ships that travel nearby. It's believed that it preys on all the crew members until they pass away, and then leaves the ships looking for its next victim. Not only this, but it's said by some that the entity will ensure the ship reaches its destination, so that people can see what it's done. The most famous ghost ship story start of the Mary Celeste. It was an American merchant ship, and on the 5th of December 1972, it was discovered deserted in the Atlantic Ocean near the Azores Islands, when Mary Celeste was discovered by a Canadian ship. It was under partial sale and was still in sale-worthy condition. The last entry into Mary Celeste's log was made 10 days before it's found. What happened to the crew of Mary Celeste? Under what circumstances did the crew of the ship abandon it? Was there any paranormal entity that was responsible for the mysterious disappearance of the crew? All these questions continue to baffle historians. Most of the believers of the paranormal entity responsible for ghost ships points to the Mary Celeste case and raises some very valid arguments that point to the presence of such an entity. As of right now, the scientific world has said there's no proof of the paranormal, and that when science is applied, the majority of these stories can easily be explained. Perhaps, though, it's humans' obsessions with trying to explain things has caused us to overlook certain topics. After all, although we're intelligent, there has to be things that even we can't explain, and for some this is the paranormal. So what do you guys make of this topic? And do you think that mysterious entities haunt our planet? As if 2020 couldn't get any worse, there is people reporting that the Annabelle doll has escaped from the Warren Museum. The bizarre news is currently being spread on social media, with many people worried that the doll could get into the wrong hands and even cause harm. The doll is known for its supernatural abilities and being able to manipulate those around her. Many who have come into close contact with the doll have reported encountering something strange. Sometimes this includes mysterious laughing, objects moving around them, or even the doll itself moving. But when investigated, researchers are usually left confused as to why this happened. This has in turn led to people blaming the doll and that there could be something otherworldly at play. As of right now, Annabelle is trending on social media. So far has over 250,000 mentions. These range from people being worried about where the doll is to people confused as to how she escaped the museum. After all, she's been locked in her box for many years now, and this was due to many people making complaints. Strangely though, it's suspected that the rumors started during an interview. This was with Annabelle Wallis. It's said by some that the story got mixed up in translation, and it was stated that Wallis said that Annabelle had gotten loose. This wasn't the case. But since then, it's gone viral with people worried that the haunted doll somehow got loose. This isn't some joke though. Those who work with and around Annabelle take the haunting seriously. For example, back in 2017, workers poured holy water on themselves after moving Annabelle. This was done to ensure that nothing bad would happen to them for the rest of the day. In fact, Lorraine Warren, who unfortunately passed away last year, is noted as saying the following: "We have a priest come in and bless the museum, including Annabelle and around her. These are prayers that bind the evil, much like an electric fence for a dog." Almost everyone used to own a Raggedy Ann doll back in its heyday. It was one of the most popular toys. Some of these dolls can even go for as much as $1,000 US, and it appears that several different companies sold several variations of these incredible popular designs. In the case of two paranormal researchers and self-proclaimed demonologists, the Raggedy Ann doll holds a very special place for them in a locked display case that's fitted and reinforced with a strong encasing metal. This is due to the fact that the Raggedy Ann doll was recovered in a haunting case of which they investigated many years ago. The doll was named Annabelle and displayed impossible characteristics that led to its previous owners to suspect that it was cursed. It had the ability to move on its own, tap against objects, write terrifying messages, and even supposedly speak out at random times. The real Annabelle doll was given to a young girl named Donna. She was a student who was training as a nurse at the time the doll was given to her. What's interesting about this story is that Annabelle was found in a second-hand store. The doll very quickly, though, started showing signs of a paranormal nature. It started off with small things such as movements in the night. However, this was brushed aside as the owner said it was wind, or her accidentally moving. But this was not the case. The doll had a life of its own and was not afraid to show it. The longer Donna had the doll, the more it started to open up to her, and this is when things started to get strange. Donna had a close friend named Louis, and it was said that he was very nervous around the doll and felt as if it was watching him every time he was near it. Other friends would also speak about how uncomfortable they felt around the doll, saying they could hear mysterious voices seemingly coming from nowhere, and that on some occasions Annabelle's eyes would follow you around the room. It's reported that Donna was very fond of the doll and struggled to believe the stories her friends were trying to tell her. However, this all stopped when she had experiences of her own. On one occasion, she left the doll to go to work. However, when she came home, she discovered on multiple occasions that Annabelle had somehow moved. Not only this, but she moved to a different room and even shut the doors in the process. Donna couldn't understand how a tiny doll was able to do this, but things would only get worse from this point on. Her friends then started to find mysterious notes in her apartment, one of which read, "Help me." On another occasion, Lou was left alone in the apartment. Everything was fine until he heard strange noises coming from Donna's room. Thinking she got home early, he opened the door. However, instead of finding Donna, he found Annabelle sat on the bed looking up towards the door. Shortly afterwards, the Warrens were called in and they were sure Annabelle was possessed. They both decided it would be best if they took the doll with them. While driving back to their home, it's reported that Annabelle caused a crash and the Warrens were sure that whatever is possessing the doll caused this on purpose. Even after getting the doll home, she continued to show signs of being possessed. She would levitate above Ed's desk and cause chest pains to whoever was close by. Doll is considered to be evil and is now locked in a glass case. This doll would later go on to inspire the Annabelle movie franchise and is often at the center of strange paranormal investigations. As of today, she is considered one of the most haunted dolls in the world. Paranormal researchers have said it's possible for spirits to inhabit objects. The paranormal is a subject that interests many of us. So far, though, experts are not convinced that ghosts and other entities are real, and they say that most paranormal footage can be explained. However, over the years, there are those that have come forward with some interesting proof, and this is in the form of photographs and objects. Given the fact that no one knows the true nature of how a curse can occur, it's been a tale often fraught with mystery as much as terror. Though the ways an individual can be cursed can vary depending on culture, one thought that has often been the same is the ownership of an object and what that does to its owner, often referenced throughout a history of cursed objects of whom have brought nothing but horror to its new home. There seems to be a retelling of these same themes to this day in modern tales of cursed objects. These stories tend to find themselves in the ownerships of families filled with misfortune. Researchers go on to say that once a spirit has bonded with an object, it can be tough to break that bond, and this only causes trouble for the new owners, as they have to deal with the entity attached to the object. This means that the majority of these haunted objects get sold on, or sold to museums that can house these mysterious objects. So although Annabelle didn't escape, what do you make of her story and the alleged claim that she's possessed? Demonic possession is a tale as old as time. Records indicate that haunting, demons, and witchcraft have always seemed to plague humanity. You can find tales of the supernatural in nearly every society. One recent study even claimed that out of 488 societies worldwide, 74% believe in possession by spirits. With so many stories of haunting, it's hard to know what's true and what isn't. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 famous ghost stories. The Old Arnold Estate. Burrowville, Rhode Island is a quiet village. With a population of just 1,600, it was setting for any American family looking to connect with nature. That's exactly what Carolyn and Roger Perrin thought they would get when they moved their 5 young daughters into a gorgeous estate in 1970. Unfortunately, their peaceful expectations were far from the truth. Almost immediately, something strange seemed to be going on in their new house. Things didn't seem to stay where you left them, and if you weren't careful, they would go missing entirely. Carolyn, the matriarch, seemed to have had it the hardest. Her broom had a mind of its own. It would travel around the house when no one was looking and sweep small piles of dirt onto newly cleaned floors, where figures would hover over them or items of furniture would burst into flames. They did their best to forget these small issues and blamed it on dreams or perhaps forgetfulness and attempted to go on living a normal life. But things continued to pile up. The girl's hair was pulled by invisible hands, and the antique bottles the family collected were constantly rearranged. The telephone and other appliances always seemed to be inoperative. Flies swarmed the house coming from no discernible source. It seemed that something or someone wanted to make their presence known. Carolyn decided to research the town's history, believing it might provide some insight into the mysterious events on their estate. Reports indicated before the parents arrived, 8 generations of the same family lived in that house, and many of them had died there too. A woman named Bethesda lived there. She had a reputation for witchcraft, and her children always seemed to die mysteriously as infants. After Carolyn's research, the hauntings grew more violent. Pots of frying meat flew off the stove while cooking. Cindy, one of the middle children, was trapped in a wooden box in the shed during a routine game of hide and seek. The parents were sure that Bethesda was to blame, and word spread. The famous ghost hunting couple that we've spoken about a few times on this channel, Ed and Lorraine Warren, came to investigate. Having heard of the house's power, the Warrens traveled to Rhode Island to investigate and conduct a seance. If the story so far sounds familiar, it's probably because it is. The 2013 movie The Conjuring was based off of the Perron family's real-life experience. However, after the arrival of the Warrens, things went a little bit differently from the movie. Carolyn was supposedly possessed during the seance. She contorted and shook wildly. But even after Warren supposedly de-demonized her, the family continued to experience unexplained torment. To add insult to injury, they couldn't afford to leave. They'd exhausted all of their resources. In 1980, they moved to Georgia. Although they left many of the spirits behind, including Bethesda, they weren't completely lucky. Andrea, the oldest parent-daughter, later wrote that the spirits of Rhode Island estate seemed to grow rather attached to the family. They seemed to follow them wherever they went. The Demon House. This story is much more recent. It takes place in the time of cell phones, Wi-Fi, and constant connectivity. Yet despite all that technology, there's still mystery in the world. In 2011, LaToya Ammons, her mother Rosa, and her 3 young children moved into a house on Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. They were greeted by an unfortunate welcome. Black flies seemed to swarm the porch. Despite the chilly December air, the family brushed it off at first. However, the flies kept returning despite all efforts to kill them off. This was only the first sign of what was to come. March 10, 2012 was a seemingly normal day. The family had hosted some friends for dinner, and the festivities had gone on into the night. The friends decided to stay over and head home in the morning. At around 2 a.m., the quiet house was suddenly filled with an ear-rending scream. It was coming from the room of LaToya's oldest daughter, who was just 12 years old. LaToya, Rosa, and their guests rushed to the room, where they were met by a terrifying sight. The young girl was levitating above the bed, screaming, completely incapacitated, trapped in a terrifying nightmare. Rosa began to pray over the girl's body, and she eventually descended and regained consciousness but had no memory of the event. From there, the hauntings only seemed to grow more intense. LaToya constantly heard heavy footsteps ascending the basement stairs and rattling the door from the basement to the kitchen. But when the family switched on the lights, wet footprints were all that was left behind. One night, LaToya's son was thrown across the room by a powerful force. Although he wasn't injured, LaToya and Rosa knew they had to do something to protect the children. On April 19th, just more than a month after the levitation, LaToya contacted their family doctor, who visited the house but didn't witness any paranormal activity. LaToya also hired a Catholic priest to perform an exorcism, which took place 3 days later on April 22nd. Mysterious hauntings? The priest visited the home, interviewed the family, and concluded that they were being haunted by as many as 200 demons. He conducted 3 exorcisms on the family, but even that didn't seem to help. LaToya's youngest son crawled backwards and rolled his eyes back into his head, seemingly possessed. Her daughter felt a presence choking her. All 3 children heard terrifying messages about dying. Finally, in May of 2012, enough was enough. After less than a year in the house and 2 months of intense haunting, the Ammons family left. Lichta was known about their whereabouts today, but online sources confirmed that leaving the house seemed to stop the haunting. The house itself was empty for 2 years until 2014. When it was purchased by filmmaker Zach, the house itself sat empty for 2 years until 2014, when it was purchased by a filmmaker. He filmed a documentary called Demon House about the inhabitants. After he was done filming, he demolished the house, hoping to bury the demons with it. Today, the plot of land sits empty and untouched. The documentary may have been successful, but still, no family will live on that spot on Carolina Street ever again. The Taylor's Devils. The year was 1787. The place was Yatton, Somerset County, England. Today this village is a normal-seeming town with a central square, a railroad station, and a number of cafes and shops. In the 18th century, however, it was the location of a frightening occurrence, one that set the stage for modern demonic possession as we know it. George Lukens was a tailor by training, but he had made his living as a common carrier. Today we would call this a messenger. He also dabbled in ventriloquism and singing, and he acted in the church's annual Christmas pageant. He was well known by his neighbors and was in good standing with the church. However, George was also a troubled man. From at least 1769, he'd experienced unusual seizures, or fits as they were called. George claimed these seizures began when he was knocked over by a divine slap while performing a church pageant. These unusual fits caused George to sing and scream in an inhuman voice, act violently, and even bark like a dog. In 1775, he spent nearly 6 months in a local hospital, but he was ultimately declared incurable and released. For a few years in the late 1770s, George's seizures seemed to slow down, and he could live a relatively normal life. Unfortunately, in 1787, his fit returned with a vengeance. More than ever before, he was overcome by strange episodes of agitations, violence, and fear. George began to suspect something dark was at play, demonic possession. Like Mary Magdalene, George believed he was possessed by 7 demons, which only 7 priests could drive out. On May 31st of that year, he experienced a violent fit in front of members of the clergy. Horrified, they called the local vicar, who interviewed George and declared an exorcism was necessary. Through a combination of singing and prayer, George's demons were cast out. Historic records indicate that George's seizures seemed to slow down after the exorcism, and the man himself seemed content and happy. Whether or not he was troubled by demonic possession after the exorcism, he was able to live out his life as a happy man. The stories we've explored today span continents, religion, and hundreds of years. Yet all of them have unusual things in common. Despite all the advancements of today's society, we may never truly understand where these stories come from and how much of them are rooted in truth. So what do you make of these? Everyday people are able to capture incredible things. Cameras and smartphones have become a necessity for people all over the world. It allows us to connect with friends and loved ones instantly, and due to how advanced modern phones are, it also allows us to take instant videos. This has meant that various people have captured strange things in the background of their videos, and even after further analysis they are left wondering what it was. This seems to have been the case for one man in Tennessee. The video was just posted to Facebook and shows what appears to be a strange object in the background of a video. The uploader states they're looking for answers for what this strange object is. The video starts with a hummingbird as a bird feeder. While the video is rolling, though, we can see what appears to be an unidentified flying object in the background. And one thing that stands out is how fast this object seems to be traveling. Now, although this may look like an airplane or something natural like a bird, this definitely isn't the case. Hummingbirds are known as graceful creatures, but they are perhaps best known for being able to flap their wings incredibly fast. In fact, researchers have said that hummingbirds can beat their wings 10 to 15 times per second. Other hummingbirds have been recorded beating their wings at a faster rate, but for argument's sake we'll go with the 10 to 15 second rate. When comparing this to the video, we can see that the hummingbird beats its wings around 6 times, meaning that whatever this object was easily covered this section of the sky in less than a second. The original owner said though they struggled to get the real-time version, but did note that during the time of the recording they didn't notice anything strange. and that this video was taken purely to capture the hummingbird close to the feeder. The original uploader posted the following comment: "I have an interesting video I'd like to share that was captured by my uncle in East Tennessee, around 55 miles from Oak Ridge. The video was taken via cell phone between 6 and 7 a.m. on Sunday, and this was on August 9th. My uncle has been taking pics and videos of the hummingbirds that have been feeding at his house for a while. This particular video, my aunt wanted to add some music and post about the hummingbird, but wanted to see what it would look like in slow motion. At the time of taking said video, they showed nothing and only heard the sounds of nature. However, upon slowing down the video, they caught something that is very interesting. Now consider how fast a hummingbird flaps its wings. Whatever flies in below the bird in the horizon is going crazy fast. It doesn't seem to be a bug. I'm trying to get the original video that's up to speed. This video starts at normal speed, then goes into slow motion. I would love to have this analyzed. Thanks for looking." Some have suggested that the video shows a helicopter, but as others pointed out, there's no way a helicopter will be able to cover that amount of distance in such a short amount of time. Others went down the route of suggesting that this was an unidentified flying object. Here's the footage. Here's an uncut version. The video was only posted today, and people are still trying to figure out what this object is. Interestingly, the uploader went on to say the following: "My uncle who shot this video is a helicopter pilot who flew for law enforcement as well as on oil rigs in various locations. He had plenty of friends who flew helicopters in the military and says it's not like any helicopter he's seen. Unidentified flying objects have interested us for years. It seems that it's a topic that keeps getting more coverage every year, something that researchers are thankful for. Another thing that's been noticed is that the subject is being taken more seriously, with researchers saying there's a high probability that aliens exist, and that we could potentially find them in the near future. However, others were of the belief that they're already here, and this is backed up by statements made by officials. One of these was recently made by the Department of Defense. With all this acknowledgement of unidentified craft, their strange abilities, and the potential for extraterrestrial life, it might appear that the Department of Defense and higher intelligence officials might be slowly coming to the consensus of total disclosure regarding the viability of alien contact in classified government projects. According to Nay Jones, the director of the Freedom of Information Act, he claims that the footage shown and provided was never officially declassified, and that there are potentially many files that are still yet to be declassified that have not yet gone through the proper channels. In fact, it almost appears to be the initial cause for the declassification of certain files to begin with was due to a potential leak of information, and this originated from inside the Pentagon. As Nate Jones clarifies with the following, it looks very strongly like these weren't released through any proper DoD declassification channels. When referring to the shown footage and declassified reports, the Department of Defense has also taken a stand by saying the following: "The official who is authorized to release this video on behalf of the Department of Defense did not approve the release of this video." The Pentagon is also referencing a study made back in the 1950s by the Central Intelligence Agency's Psychological Board, of which concluded that the public's potential reaction to UFOs could cause an instance of mass hysteria, which constituted a national security threat. According to Eric Davis, the astrophysicist claims that the United States Department of Defense is in possession of a recovered off-road vehicle that is verifiably not made on our his story detailed to the New York Times claims that Davis was tasked with giving classified briefings to Defense Department agencies, the Senate Armed Services Committee, and the Senate Intelligence Committee last October. During multiple instances of recovered materials from extraterrestrial events, David details that he was unable to determine the source of the materials that made up recovered artifacts, most likely being off-world metals of materials that would not have been terrestrial in nature. With all this news currently coming out, it's caused some to suggest that the general public could be receiving some incredible news in the near future. What you make of this interesting video, and do you think it shows an unidentified flying object? All around the world, people report terrifying encounters with ghosts and spirits. Those who don't believe in the paranormal often change their mind when they see it for themselves. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 creepy apparitions. The girl with the missing face. For Sejidi Genji, a nostalgic look through her family photo collection turned into a terrifying discovery. When glancing at a photo of her mother posing next to a signpost, she realized there was an apparition of a young girl wearing a white dress in the background. The girl appears to have no face or arm and is pictured simply standing behind the woman. Understanding that a photo so strange warrant sharing, Gyunji logged onto the Paranormal 360 website to display her ghostly finding. In her post, Gyunji stated, "The photograph was taken in 1943 in Hungary. My mother is in the foreground. The photo was taken by my father. A little girl is standing in the background. She has no arms, no face. It's like a ghost or a demon." Whether or not Jianji was able to discuss the photo with her parents is unclear. One theory of how this photo could exist without paranormal activity is that the young girl had her arms behind her back and her head down with the wind blowing her hair into her face. Irregardless of the situation, the photo is spine-chilling. Gettysburg National Military Park Ghosts. In July 1863, more than 165,000 Union and Confederate troops battled for over 3 days in the small town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Over 7,000 Americans were killed, 33,000 injured, and more than 10,000 missing. After the battle, the bloodiest of the Civil War, thousands of corpses were dumped into mass graves. Half of the town's original buildings are still in use, including makeshift hospitals and morgues for wounded and dead soldiers. With all the death surrounding the area, it's no wonder that at Gettysburg's National Military Park, sightings of apparitions seem to be a common occurrence. There have been hundreds of ghost sightings reported both by residents and visitors. One particularly haunted area in Gettysburg is known as Devil's Den. Devil's Den is part of the battlefield and contains a maze of boulders. One of the den's apparitions appeared to a young woman climbing on one of the rocks. She felt her hand grab her ankle and looked down to see a young man in Civil War uniform. She turned to get her friend's attention, but when she looked back down, the man was gone. Helpful Hippie is another apparition known to hang around the Devil's Denver. One woman first noticed the hippie during an early morning visit where a man suddenly appeared among the rocks and pointed off in the distance saying, "What you're looking for is over there." The man then vanished. The woman described the apparition as disheveled, with shoulder-length hair, topped with a floppy hat and wearing ragged clothing with bare feet. The description makes sense as Texan soldiers didn't receive clothing packages from home, as Texas was then a remote frontier area. Confederate techs and soldiers were often labeled as dirty. Multiple visitors have spotted the helpful hippies since. One ghost at Devil's Den doesn't make its appearance known, but has other ways of interfering with people's visit. Many visitors to Devil's Den report malfunctioning camera and phone batteries in the area that seem to fix themselves outside of the area. Mark Nesbitt, a former Gettysburg National Military Park ranger and paranormal investigator, had an interesting theory to explain this phenomenon. Nesbitt believes that the culprit is the ghost of a fallen Confederate soldier, whose dead body was moved to stage photos around the battlefield. Perhaps the disrespect this soldier experienced after his life ended motivated him to spend an eternity haunting photographs. What's specifically fascinating about the Gettysburg ghost sightings is many of them are reported by Civil War reenactment actors. It seems that restaging battles evokes more than just commemoration. One actor, Ray Hawk, saw the ghost of a soldier wearing original Civil War equipment. The soldier handed him 2 cartridges, which were later confirmed to be authentic Civil War ammunition. During another reenactment, actor Richard Knapp found a soldier lying in the bushes, who appeared to be made out of a hazy mist. Knapp recalls the soldier shivering and looking as if he was in pain. Sights of apparitions have even been reported at the visitor center at the front of Gettysburg National Park. Perhaps this is because the visitor center holds many artifacts from the battle. There are also locations in the town of Gettysburg, but just outside the national park that houses apparitions. At the Drummer Boy Camp Resort, the ghosts of soldiers have been seen walking in unison and then suddenly vanishing. The Dobbin House Tavern, built by Reverend Alexander Dobbin in 1776, now houses a restaurant where the Reverend is allegedly still seen. Soldiers' apparitions have also been reported in Gettysburg Wax Museum, the Hall of Presidents. One house in the town has an especially bizarre paranormal background. The Jenny Wade house was the site of one of the direct civilian deaths of the Civil War. When Jenny Wade was 20 years old, a Confederate bullet deviated from the battle scene, came through two wooden doors in her kitchen, and pierced her in the heart. Jenny Wade is reported to haunt that house to this day. The Gettysburg Hotel, steps away from the site of Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, is thought to be one of the most haunted locations in town. It's known for the apparition of a nurse named Rachel, who died inside the hotel during a battle. She's often spotted rushing down the halls and is thought to remove guests' belongings from their rooms in search of medical supplies. The final location of interest to apparition seekers is the Gettysburg College, which holds the title of the most haunted college campus in the world. Many apparitions have been identified there, from the Blue Boy to the Orphan to the Lone Sentinel. Pennsylvania Hall was a hospital during the battle, but now contains the offices of Gettysburg College. One popular story tells of two school administrators who were alone in the building at night. When they went to use the elevator, it went past their floor to the basement. When the doors opened, they saw a scene from the past. The basement was full of wounded soldiers and reeked of infection. A doctor turned to them and asked if they needed any help. The pair immediately took the elevator back up. It seems that there's no spot in Gettysburg left not haunted. The White Lady isn't just a single apparition. She's an international phenomenon. In almost every corner of the world, legends exist of a white lady, usually tall, slim, wearing white and with black hair, haunting the nearby area. You can find these stories of a white lady in Europe, North America, South America, Russia, East Asia, and Southeast Asia, typically in quite rural areas. It's unclear why her description is so similar around the world, as black hair is uncommon in Caucasian-dominated areas, and body types are viewed differently by different cultures. Most of the stories behind the White Lady apparition have a lot of commonalities, despite existing on several separate continents. The story also typically involves themes of loss, betrayal by a husband or fiancé, or unrequited love. In one story, the White Lady of Germany is thought to be the wife of a prince. The wife had an affair with a singer when the prince was away fighting a war. When the prince returned home and discovered his wife's betrayal, he had the singer drowned in the castle's moat. To punish his wife, he sealed her alive in the castle's wall with provisions of food and water. The prince later died in battle and wasn't able to keep replenishing her supplies. Brazil's White Lady is called Dharma Branca. She's thought to be the ghost of a young woman who died during childbirth. She's said to occasionally recount her tragic death during her appearances. In another version of the story, the White Lady represents women dying at the hands of their father or husband for cases of adultery or other actions considered dishonorable for a woman. In an Irish White Lady legend, the wife of a soldier finds herself in a state of mourning when the soldier passes out from intoxication and is executed for leaving his post while on duty. The widow's depression causes her to throw herself over the castle's ramparts to her death, while wearing her wedding dress still. She's since then been spotted roaming the castle grounds numerous times, earning her the title of the White Lady. These are just 3 examples of White Lady stories. However, there are countless stories from all over the world. Do you believe there's truth behind these tales, or that witnesses are simply falling for the trick of the light? No matter the cause, the repeated sight of the same ghost is certainly a creepy coincidence. So what do you make of these different apparitions? Various space agencies have said they want to put humans on Mars, and they say this is doable, but they just need a little more time. In the meantime, studying this planet's environment is essential to giving us the best possible opportunity for colonization. The more we've studied Mars, the more we've learned about its various changes over the years. For example, many years ago scientists said that Mars would have been uninhabitable. But research has shown us that at one point in time Mars would have had conditions suitable for life. This is evident in the water flow that can be seen on the surface of the red planet. Amateur researchers, though, have said that they think flowing water can be seen on Mars. And this is evident when you add color to the photographs that get sent back by the rovers. They say that when you do this, Mars looks completely different, and you're even able to see things like animals. Now, before I carry on, It's important to note that NASA and other space agencies have said there's no evidence of life on Mars, and that what people are seeing is pareidolia. The most recent photograph that's making the rounds is this one, and believers state it shows a type of humanoid looking at the Mars rover. This can be tough to make out at first, but when you zoom in on the photograph, amateur researchers say you can easily see what appears to be a humanoid. One person said the following: "This is one of the more interesting photographs to recently come from Mars. When studying these photographs, it's important to zoom in and add filters. NASA applies their own filters to drown out everything in the background. This is a known thing, and it causes the background to appear much more bland than it actually is. Once we enhance the photographs, we can see things that would normally get picked up. And on this occasion, this small humanoid was one of them." NASA, however, hasn't got on board with the idea that there's life running around on the red planet, and the reason they say this is because of its harsh conditions. Something as delicate as a small humanoid wouldn't stand a chance of surviving on Mars with these types of conditions. This hasn't stopped amateur researchers from coming through photographs in the hopes of finding something. One thing the space agency has said is that it would like to find life. And this is one of the reasons why they spent billions on rovers and other pieces of equipment. As mentioned though, amateur researchers have said that they think life is already existing on the red planet, and all you have to do is look at some of the anomalies that's been found over the years. NASA has hit back at these claims and suggests that what people are experiencing is pareidolia. This is when your mind plays tricks on you and makes you think that something is there when it isn't. So what do you make of this photograph? Do you think it shows a small humanoid? Or do you think it's just an illusion? Recently, various photographs have been making the rounds on social media showing strange beams of light. Interestingly, these strange lights have been showing up in various places, and this has caused several eyewitnesses to give their opinions on what the lights could be. One man said the following: "While on the way to work, I saw what appeared to be a giant beam of light open up in the sky. This light wasn't the same as the natural light piercing the clouds. It was massive and really bright. I got distracted while heading to work, which eventually caused me to be late. But I couldn't miss the opportunity to see this mysterious light. I have no idea what it was, and I could also see other drivers pointing it out as they were driving by. It was like something out of a movie." Interestingly, this isn't the first time these strange beams of lights have been reported. Going back a few years ago, residents in Rockwell, Texas reported giant booms and lights in the area. Those who witnessed the event said it illuminated the sky. Skeptics argued that what people were reporting was just the sun shining through the clouds. But residents countered this and said if this was the case, then the beam should have spread to the horizon. But in this case, it didn't. It was very direct. Various photographs then started to reach social media, where thousands of people started to give their opinions on the mysterious lines. One resident said the following: "As I was driving, I noticed a distinct light coming from the sky. Caught my eyes, it didn't look natural. I'd never seen anything like this before. I had my mom in the car and she was surprised as well. The beam of light was very distinct, and it didn't look like the sun coming through the clouds." Another witness had this to say: "The lights certainly did look weird, but I think I've seen something similar. We call these things God rays, but they do usually have more light rays. This one seems to be one giant one." Scientists have come forward with a possible explanation. They have suggested it could be an anti-solar ray. These rays are parallel shafts of sunlight from holes in the clouds, and their apparently odd directions are a perspective effect. As of right now, more of these photographs are being shared around, with some of the most recent ones coming from New York. Again, these lights are similar to the ones that are being reported, but are noted as being larger. So what do you make of these mysterious lines? Do you think that something mysterious is at play? Or do you think they have a natural explanation? NASA is at the forefront of space exploration. They've been vocal about how they want to carry on sending humans and robots into the cosmos, and that hopefully in the near future we'll even have bases on the Moon and Mars. These missions have only inspired people to look to their stars and dream about the wonders it holds. It's very likely that humans will land on the red planets within many of our lifetimes, with other space agencies saying they're looking at sending many of us to this planet. For example, SpaceX has announced their plans to send over 1 million people to Mars by 2050. Not only this, but they plan to build an actual city for these people in the hopes that a new civilization can be started. This in turn has got a lot of people excited. Elon Musk stated that in various tweets that the end goal is to get 1 million people on Mars within the next few decades, and that he hopes over 1,000 starships can be built to achieve this. He goes on to say that the goal is to be able to launch several of these starships a day so that trips to Mars can be open all the time. Elon went on to say the following needs to be such that everyone can go if they want, with loans available for those who don't have money. There will be lots of jobs on Mars. This is incredible news and shows how far we've come in recent years. With that being said, though, there's people that believe space is already being inhabited. According to amateur researchers that have spent countless hours looking through old space photographs, they have said that NASA have done a great job at taking detailed photographs of space, but in some of these you can easily see unidentified flying objects. NASA has spoken out about these claims and say that what people are seeing is usually nothing more than pareidolia or natural objects. It seems though that this explanation hasn't gone down well with these researchers, as they've gone on to say they think there's something bigger going on. One researcher by the name of ET Database recently discovered this alleged UFO on the moon. The object was discovered on the 10th of August 2020 and is stated as being over 25 miles in length. The glowing white object appears to be dishemied, and upon further review even appears to be leaving a shadow below it, something that the researchers say adds credibility to the photograph. Photos like these usually get sent to groups that study this type of phenomena, and they suggested that the object was not traveling at the time the photo was taken, but was rather just hovering. Not much more information can be given about the photo, but one thing to note is that UFO researchers have said the moon is actually a hotspot for UFOs. One such theory used by researchers to explain all the UFO sightings is that the moon is actually a base. On November 14, 1969, in an attempt to better understand the makeup of the moon, NASA placed multiple seismic readers across its surface and then soon launched a lunar space module on a collision course for the moon. The idea behind this theory was to allow the lunar module to strike the moon with such a dramatic force that it would send specific frequencies throughout the entire core of the moon and allow the seismic readers to capture this data, and helped accurately map out the inside of the moon. What they soon discovered was baffling. Original theories and hypothesis has suggested these reverberations would not last longer than a minute. Given that the surface of our moon is covered in mostly basalt, of which would work to absorb these reverberations, and given its extensive presence was believed to make up the majority of the mantle of the moon at this time, it was mathematically calculated to prevent the seismic activity from lasting for a prolonged period of time. However, as the lunar module struck the moon, the entire celestial body began reverberating for over an hour. NASA scientists described its reverberation similar to that of a church bell ringing. There is still no reasonable hypothesis for the cause of this today, and no further information can be gathered given NASA's lack of future missions to the moon. The most legitimate theory available at this time comes from the works of Russian researchers Michael Vaslin and Alexander Shabakov that had put forward the artificial moon theory. They began to notice that the craters of the moon, regardless of the impact size or diameter, all equaled out in depth. They also noted that these craters generally had very shallow and flat interiors, and in other areas even containing convex bottoms. They hypothesized that meteors are hitting an armored hole underneath the surface of the moon, preventing further depths into the celestial body, and believing the moon to be a possible spaceship created by complex alien life. This theory was only reinforced as the mathematics for the moon and its density became an apparent issue. Given its size, location, and theorized general makeup, the moon should have a density of roughly 5.5 grams per cubic centimeter. However, given its orbital path and overall physics, we find the moon to be only 3.3 grams per cubic centimeter, causing the moon to be much less dense compared to that of our planet. Despite theories of the moon's creation coming from the materials of the Earth, reinforcing facts also soon began becoming connected to the strange anomalous properties of our moon. According to some, the moon is too big to have naturally been caught into the orbit of our planet. For comparison, our moon is 2,159 miles in diameter, whereas the largest Martian moon is merely 14 miles in diameter. This has led to a wide array of debates among the scientific community as to its formation, and even recreations and simulations of impact theory have proven ineffective and mathematically implausible as to the formation of our moon. However, modern scientists have hit back at these claims and say there's no proof to back up the claims our moon is hollow. UFOs have been reported by people for decades now, but one of the issues is that many of those eyewitnesses are not able to back up their claims with hard proof. This usually comes down to several factors, one of which is that they're not carrying around a HD camera and a tripod with them when the encounter happens. This can be one of the more frustrating sides to seeing a UFO, having people judge you for not taking a photograph, or taking one and it not being of high quality. One of the issues with modern smartphones is that they're really great at capturing details when the object is up close. However, if you're trying to take a photograph on a phone when the object is several hundred meters away, and traveling fast, this becomes very difficult, and the end result is usually a fuzzy object. People aren't usually ready when these types of encounters happen, and the eyewitness will normally reach for their phone. The encounter is rushed and can leave the individual scrambling for answers for what they just witnessed. It's reported that thousands of unidentified flying objects are reported every year, and although it's suspected that a large majority of these can be easily explained, whether that's as natural phenomena, wildlife such as birds, the military, whether balloons or drones, some have said that a few of these UFO sightings are hard to explain. It seems though, in recent years, governments and other officials are opening up to the idea of UFOs. 20 years ago, you would have been mocked if you'd come forward with a UFO encounter. But it seems in recent years, the idea of UFOs has been taken more seriously, with the military saying that they've even recovered artifacts from said objects. These artifacts are currently in the hands of the military, and people aren't sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. There's some that have said it's a good thing because they're now admitting we have this type of technology, while others said there's a high chance this object will be locked away and that no further information will be released about it. Others have also said that these materials might try to be replicated by scientists, in the hopes that we can create crafts similar to it. As of right now, though, it's interesting that the military and governments are being more open to the idea of UFOs. So what do you make of the idea that UFOs can be seen on the moon? Do you think that these photographs are genuine, or just a case of pareidolia? When if the human survival instincts kicked in, amazing things can happen. Humans will stop at nothing to triumph over situations that threaten their lives. Creativity, endurance, and patience can turn a victim into a survivor under the right conditions. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 stories of men who survived harrowing incidents at sea. Harrison O'Keene. For Harrison O'Keene, a 29-year-old Nigerian cook, small details and extreme luck turned a would-be tragic ending into a survival story. May 26, 2013 was just another day on the job for O'Keene. He was the resident chef on AHT Jaskin 4, a tugboat that was transporting a team of 12 men who were attempting to stabilize an oil tanker off the coast of Nigeria. While the team took note of the rough Atlantic waves they were facing, they underestimated the power of them until it was too late. The boat capsized and started to sink at 4:50 a.m. when O'Keene was using the bathroom. He saw water suddenly rush into the room, and he instantly reacted, opening the door fast enough to avoid entrapment. Soon, the boat started to descend, and gravity pulled O'Keene to the other side of the boat, into the officer's bathroom. The toilet was above him, and he hung to it to keep his head above water. His chances of survival appeared slim. When the boat reached the ocean floor, O'Keene was able to swim into a bedroom, where he made a raft out of panels he tore off the wall. This allowed him to access an air bubble and he remained there for 60 hours. His experience was extraordinarily horrifying. All the other crewmen had perished, and he could sense their bodies nearby based on the smell and the sound of fish eating them. Despite the air bubble and raft, O'Kine's survival was uncertain at best. He had no way to know when a dive team would examine the sunken ship. It was pitch black, and the freezing cold water created a hypothermia risk. According to National Geographic, someone trapped in O'Kine's conditions would only have 56 hours until carbon dioxide toxicity would set in. He also faced limited oxygen supply and no access to food or drinkable water. Furthermore, the increased air pressure saturated his blood with nitrogen. Even with this whole list of threats to his survival, he pulled through for almost 3 days before he heard the sounds of a rescue team above. The team expected to only recover dead bodies, but O'Kine was there hammering the side of the boat. Suddenly, his dark bedroom was lit up by a diver's light. Though it became apparent that he was actually going to get rescued, it wasn't as simple as some might think. Akeem couldn't immediately come to the surface with the divers because he needed to decompress the surface air pressure. The divers first took him to a transfer capsule that was at the same pressure as the bottom of the sea. This way, the group could return to the surface without experiencing changes in pressure from their original location. At the surface, the group entered through a tunnel into a decompression chamber. The chamber allowed them to adjust to normal pressure levels gradually. Even after taking the science into consideration, O'Kine's survival is miraculous. Even though O'Kine was able to return to a normal way of life, it was permanently changed. When discussing the effects on his experience on his daily life, O'Kine commented, "I think I'm still at sea again. I jump up and I scream. I don't know what stopped the water from filling that room." Another effect of his extraordinary survival is the considerable fame it earned him. His rescue was caught on camera and went viral internationally. The video shows Akine's hand reaching out to the divers in the dark and captures their initial shock to find a man alive. Akine then fully comes into frame, and the rest of the video shows the initial stages of the rescue. Clearly, this popular video alerted many to the resiliency of the human body and spirit. Poon Lim. It's impressive enough to survive as a castaway adrift at sea for a few days, but to survive for 133 days is a miraculous display of resiliency. This achievement belongs to Poon Lim, a true warrior who prevailed with all the odds stacked against him. In 1942, Poon Lim was serving in World War II as a steward on the SS Ben Lomond, Britain's merchant ship, when a German U-boat came and sank it with a torpedo. Out of the 55 crew members, 11 were saved by other ships. The majority of the remaining crew sank with the ship, but Lim had a different story. Lim wasn't able to swim, but he was able to find a life jacket. He jumped into the ocean and swam for 2 hours before finding an 8x8 wooden raft. Luckily, it had some survivable rations that Lim might not have survived without. The rations included 2 tins of dried biscuits, 40 liters of water, sugar cubes, chocolate, 2 smoking pots, an electric torch, and some flares. Because Lim couldn't swim, he made sure to tie his wrist to the raft with a rope in case he fell off in his sleep. This was only one out of many steps that he took to ensure his survival. He used the material of his life jacket to catch and channel rainwater. He made fish hooks out of wire from his electric stove and nails from the wood of the raft. He also made a knife out of a biscuit tin. Lin would lure and catch fish with some success, it seemed. He came across that food wouldn't be a major issue, but one night a storm destroyed his supply of fish and water. The setback was almost an end for him. He no longer succeeded in fishing, and water became scarce. As a last resort, he started hunting the bird flying around him. This solved his food problem, and he was also able to drink the bird's blood to satisfy his thirst while waiting for the next rainstorm. The birds originally seemed like a solution, but they ended up creating another deadly problem. The blood from the birds was beginning to attract sharks. The sharks not only offered their own dangers, but scared off his supply of fish as well. Ultimately, he decided his best chance at survival was to use bird meat as bait to catch small sharks. He succeeded in catching one, but had to battle it in his wrath with a water jug. He was able to kill it, but not without a lot of efforts and some painful injuries. Despite all the victories in his survival efforts, Lim eventually sunk into despair, not believing he would ever be rescued. He later recalled seeing other ships in the distance and planes overhead. He began to think they wouldn't rescue him because he was Chinese. He was unaware of the fact that ships and planes were too far away to see him, but the one plane that did see him aborted a rescue mission due to a storm. But soon Lim realized the color of the water changing, and he knew he was getting closer to land. Perhaps he didn't need a rescue at all, and would drift to land on his own. However, help came his way. 3 fishermen found him and brought him to land. Despite being malnourished and 20 pounds lighter, he recovered for a month in a Brazilian hospital before returning to Britain. He died in Brooklyn, New York in 1991 at the age of 73. To this day, no one has survived longer than Lim at sea in a life raft, a true testament to this man's extraordinary will. Philip Ashton's Some survival stories don't start with an accident. They start with an escape. This was the case with Philip Ashton, who evaded pirates and survived on an uninhabited island for 16 months in 1723. Ashton was a 19-year-old fisherman, who in 1722 set sail to the Grand Banks of Newfoundland to fish for cod as a captain of the schooner Milton. He led 6 other fishermen from Marblehead, Massachusetts. One night in June, while anchored away at Port Roseway, Ashton noticed a boat of men rowing towards them and assumed they were delivering news. After they got closer, he saw the men pull swords and pistols from their clothes and realized the visit was far more sinister. They were pirates. The men demanded Ashton surrender the vessel and his crew. The pirates captured Ashton and brought him aboard the Rebecca, the pirate ship of Edward Lowe. Even for a pirate, Lowe had a bad reputation. He was known to mutilate and decapitate his captives. Despite most sailors being terrified of Lowe, Ashton still refused to cooperate. He wouldn't join the crew of pirates and suffered beatings as a consequence. Ashton remained in the pirates' captivity for almost a year. It wasn't until March 1723, when the pirates landed in an island in the Gulf of Honduras, that Ashton was able to make his escape. Immediately upon arrival on the island, Ashton ran and hid in the jungle. He waited there until the pirates decided to leave without him. He was able to survive on this island, which had no civilization, for over a year. He faced many dangers, including intense heat and alligators. Since he had no weapons, he was limited to fruit as a food source. He eventually met another castaway, who gave him a knife and other supplies before leaving and never returning. Ashton used his new tools to kill animals and make fires. In June 1723, after 16 months on the island, 2 English woodcutters canoeing to the island found him in such a weak state that he had to be carried. They therefore took him to their camps. Ashton lived with the woodcutters until the ship, the Diamond, arrived at shore in 1724. It just so happened that the ship was coming from Salem, Massachusetts, which was near the house of Ashton's father. In totality, Philip Ashton spent 2 years, 10 months and 15 days as a captive and castaway before he was able to reach home. So what do you make of these amazing ocean survival stories? Area 51 is shrouded in mystery. Although the base has been a talking point for years, featured in movies and visited by countless people, its secrets are still well hidden. Interestingly, although Area 51 is known for UFOs, aliens, and reverse engineering alleged alien crafts, not many UFOs or strange events are reported from this location. But every so often someone will come forward with interesting photographs that allegedly show unidentified flying objects. When a UFO is captured, it usually gets a lot of attention from those interested in the topic. But when a UFO is sighted at a place like Area 51, it gets even more attention. This is because of the history of the base and the alleged stories of UFOs being housed there. These recent photographs allegedly show a UFO at Area 51. The craft is disc-shaped and can be seen slowly hovering above the nearby hill. When these photographs started to make the rounds on social media, people got excited and soon started to speculate about what the object was. There were those that said it was a genuine, unidentified flying object, while others said it might have been some type of new technology from the base itself. One person said the following: "I saw a craft similar to this hovering above Nevada. After seeing these photographs, it makes me wonder whether it was the same craft." Not much information can be gathered about this photograph, but those that have visited Area 51 have said it's rare to see these types of objects. Another person came forward and said the following: "This is a really great capture, and rare as you don't usually see UFOs at the base itself. Going back several decades ago, you would be able to see all kinds of strange lights flying around the base at night, but you don't really see them anymore. I guess it's because a lot of people visit the base now, and they want to keep certain tech under control. Regardless, it's an interesting photo." Others, however, did suggest that the UFO was fake, and it seems too good to be true that a genuine UFO would be captured at a place like Area 51. Regardless, this hasn't stopped people from wanting to know the base's secrets. Some have also said that the UFOs that are seen here most likely belong to the military and are new types of tech being tested. Others say that no UFO material is held at this base, and this perhaps comes down to the fact that this secret site is visited by many people a year. In fact, it's almost become a sort of tourist attraction, with thousands of people traveling here yearly in order to have their photographs taken with the various signs. Although it's been known for years, what actually goes on here is very much a secret. One of the reasons that people suspect something is going on here is due to all the surveillance around the base itself. It sits inside a dry lake bed inside the Nevada desert, and the closest you can legally get to it is 26 miles away on Tajbu Peak. Tajbu Peak is the place where UFO enthusiasts go to get a closer look at the famous Area 51. It sits high above the base and gives those who make it a great view of the base. It's noted as being a difficult trek. Those who want to climb it will have to trek over 1.2 miles, and although this doesn't sound like a lot, it's not the easiest trail. It's very steep, and those must climb over 1,000 feet in elevation before they reach Tajbu Peak. Although the views at the top are breathtaking, and those that have climbed it have said it's well worth it, others have said they're disappointed with how small Area 51 looks from the summit. After all, it's 26 miles away. Others have said, though, that something strange might happen when you reach the top. Two men who made the trek said that once they reached the top, they could see a blacked-out helicopter quickly approaching them. One of them noted it was flying extremely low, and that when it got close it didn't pull away or gain height. It flew right over the top of them, leaving only a few meters. The men said the ordeal was quite frightening, and suspected that the helicopter had come from Area 51. When asked why they thought it flew over them so closely, they had this to say: "Something tells me that this might have been a warning of sorts. After all, we did climb up there to see the views of Area 51. Others have told me that they can track what you're saying from this distance, and maybe there's a chance they sent out the helicopter to intimidate us." I have to say it worked. It was quite terrifying seeing this massive helicopter coming towards us at that speed, and that the fact it didn't pull back is something I won't forget. It's an incredible view when you make it to the top, but there is a possibility that a massive helicopter could charge you. This type of behavior isn't uncommon either. Although Area 51 is a secret base, it's actually quite well known. This is because of various things that have come out about the base over the years. Although these make for fascinating stories, there's no solid evidence of them being true. One of the first things you'll notice when you're traveling close to the base is that it's marked with orange palms. These are mainly here to tell you that trespassing and photography isn't allowed. The guards can be seen around the perimeter of the base, and they immediately appear before you can even get close. Over the years, they become known as the Camo Dudes. This is because of their clothing. They can be observed driving around in 4x4 cars and dealing with people who stray too close to the base. One interesting thing to note is that they're supposedly told not to look at the public. If you're caught by these guards, they have the right to take away any photographs or video footage you've taken. Sensors can be found littered across the perimeter of the base, and even the road that leads down to Area 51. The minute you start driving or walk on these sensors, the guards are alerted. This is why they're always there before you are. Area 51 has been a top-secret base for years, and for a very long time it was shrouded in mystery. It's only been in recent years that we've found little information about it. Satellite imaging of the base itself is believed to be edited and tampered with. And considering it's quite nearly impossible to get reliable footage of areas even surrounding the military base, the contents inside its safely protected border are still a mystery to the general public. The U.S. military wasn't impressed with the claims that people were going to raid Area 51 a while back, and said there could be trouble if millions of people turned up, saying if this did happen they would handle it in the right way to protect America's security, going on to say that even if this was done in a joking manner it would be handled as a threat. One question people had after the Area 51 meetup was what would happen if millions of people actually turned up. How would they control the masses? People who have looked into the base have said that if they wanted to, they could use deadly force. In fact, going back in 2017, the military opened fire on a man who was trying to break into a rural Air Force base in Suffolk, England. It's not the desired outcome, but officials have said they'll do what's needed to keep people under control. Not only this, but U.S. law does forbid anyone from trespassing on military bases. Laws have been created that prohibits people from walking or entering military installations. The only way civilians can do this legally is if they have permission from authorized personnel. It's also been brought up that thousands of people do turn up at Area 51. Officials will not hold back and use the correct measures to deal with these people. It's said that people found trespassing on military bases can expect a heavy fine. Not only this, but this also comes with a minimum jail sentence of 6 months. One of the first things you see when you approach the base is the warning signs. These can be found all around Area 51 and they state that no trespassing is allowed and that the use of deadly force is authorized. After everything got out of hand and went a little crazy, the man behind the Facebook page came forward and said that he was worried about what he's created. He said the page was originally set up as a joke and that he had no idea it was going to get that big. He said he was surprised how quick it spread. Others have said, though, they're not surprised, and that many people would love to know what's going on inside the base. With one member saying the following, "Over the years we've heard many strange stories about the base. Although this started off as a joke, I think that many people would actually be interested in knowing what's going on there. Because it's a secret, it's made our minds wander even more. I think that at first many were here because of the memes, but I think this has now turned into something and the people now want answers." The original creator, however, was concerned about the consequences this would have. He expressed how he thought the FBI agents were going to turn up at his house, and that he's now under surveillance. After all, at that time he brought a massive amount of unwanted attention to one of the most secretive bases in the world. He said the following, "Now that my identity is out there, I'm worried that people will start showing up at my door. As of right now, the mysterious base is still shrouded in mystery. Although all of this has come out, it's not revealed anything to the general public." Individuals who have also been researching the base have warned that past events could show us what would happen if a random person did turn up at the base. To start, going back in 2016, a television crew filming for the BBC were immediately arrested at gunpoint, and this was for getting too close to Area 51. The crew was made up of 12 people, and each person was forced to lie down and be such by their guards. Incredibly, they were told to lie on the ground for 3 hours, where the FBI did security checks on each of the individuals. They were eventually let go. So my question to you guys is, what do you make of this mysterious photograph? And what do you think of the base itself? Science is a constantly evolving field. One portion of that is space. There's so much new information to learn about the universe around us, and astronomy continues to dive deeper into our galaxy, unpacking new mysteries and new challenges. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 recent space discoveries. NASA InSight Mole. NASA's InSight lander, also known as the Mole, was created with the ability to dig itself at least 3 meters underground. The Mole has been sent to Mars in order to make new discoveries, landing on the Red Planet on November 26, 2018. The terrain on Mars was known to have been a challenge for the Mole, creating new difficulties in burrowing as it was designed. It's extremely difficult for scientists to mirror conditions that these technologies will face, as it is impossible to exactly replicate the terrain of the red planet. However, InSight is highly equipped for a variety of challenges, complete with arms that allow the lander to stay on track. Scientists were hoping the mole could dig itself deep enough to get a temperature reading of the planet, which is one of the main purposes InSight was created for. Scientists also hope to use InSight to spot meteors over Mars. This would allow them to obtain new information regarding how often meteors strike that part of the planet, as well as better assess the impact of a meteor on the surface of the planet. Recent images captured may have suggested that the mole became stuck, as the mole requires soil friction to burrow. However, the soil beneath InSight appears to be extremely cement-like, which suggests the self-burrowing action causes it to bounce and remain in place. However, as of June 2020, NASA has released reports and confirmed that the mole appears to finally be underground. It's unclear to NASA whether the mole has made any significant progress, or whether it's run into some new problems, but they hope to have new intel soon. This will all depend on the kind of environment that the mole has found itself within, and whether traction will become another problem. The mole is truly venturing where none have gone before. Another potential problem for the mole is that winter is approaching soon on Mars. This means that dust storm season is soon beginning. Once this occurs, the atmosphere will continue to get dustier and may also impact the solar panels that the mole needs for power. This could negatively impact the ability to keep power supply in the near future, which would set back the progress intended for the mole. NASA is hopeful that this won't present too much of an issue. The mole is extremely fascinating because it tells us just how unique and innovative space discovery is. Through these new technologies, scientists continue to shape our understanding of the universe around us. Through InSight, we're able to access new parts of Mars that were once out of reach, in the hopes there will be valuable new insight into the red planet, and perhaps the universe in general. The Big Bang may be a black hole inside another universe. The idea that perhaps our universe exists within a black hole is actually not just an idea, but perhaps reality. Many people believe that the universe began from a single point of matter, which is exactly what a black hole is. The idea that the whole universe can be contained inside another is possible due to how time and space can be warped, which is what the black hole theory suggests, is that it accounts for some of the issues with the basic Big Bang theory. The black hole Big Bang theory offers a theory that can be formulated within the bounds of the theory of relativity. It also offers important questions into whether the Big Bang happened at all. This theory suggests that within a black hole is a kind of expansion of matter capable of creating a universe. More specifically, capable of creating our universe. The theory suggests that instead of a Big Bang, our universe was actually born within a black hole. Part of this alternative understanding of the universe includes an important part of quantum physics, which is spin. Particles like atoms have an internal momentum that creates a spin. Spins in these particles interact with spacetime, giving it a property known as torsion. Torsion would actually only be important in black holes. In this kind of environment, torsion would counter the gravitational force. Because of this, torsion could have had a role in the birth of our universe. Torsion would be capable of preventing matter from compressing into a point of infinite density. Instead, matter would reach a state of finite density, which when paired with the higher gravitational energy would cause the production of particles. These new particles would cause higher levels of torsion. The torsion would prevent the black hole from collapsing, instead forcing it to expand, almost creating a sort of bounce. This would account for how our expanding universe came to be. Using this theory, each new bounce would create another black hole. In essence, each black hole can act as a tunnel from one universe to another, a sort of wormhole. This actually helps to solve the problem of singularity and how all this came to be through one single point, because it gives a more plausible explanation. A lot of scientists take issue with singularity. Seems pretty unlikely that all of this came to be from a random single point of matter. Instead, the black hole theory suggests that singularity isn't really singularity, it's actually just a black hole. If the universe was born from a black hole, It would tell us what happened before the Big Bang and suggest new interesting information into what black holes could be. It also means that an even greater universe exists within our own. The black hole theory does add up. While we can't really calculate what happens within a black hole, we can predict that a black hole would be able to grow to the size to contain everything that exists in a universe. This means one black hole could contain even more of them, meaning that within every universe is another. Now, this is fairly hard to wrap your brain around, and it seems kind of astonishing. Believe it or not, this is a new theory gaining some serious traction in the field of astronomy. While this theory can be pretty mind-boggling, it's not as crazy as it might sound. In fact, it may answer more questions than it creates. It's theories like this that help us realize how much mystery there is left in the universe. Perhaps our universe exists within a black hole. The thought of that opens many new doors, and it keeps us digging to learn the truth. Hubble discovers moon orbiting the dwarf planet Makemake. NASA's Hubble telescope has discovered a small moon orbiting Makemake. Makemake is the second brightest dwarf planet after Pluto, and is one of 5 dwarf planets internationally recognized. It was discovered in 2005. Its moon's been nicknamed 2 Malawian Kwaches, and it's approximately 13,000 miles from the planet. The discovery of 2 Malawian Kwaches was made in 2015 using the Hubble's field camera. The discovery of a new moon around a planet can lend important information to the dwarf planet system. Through measuring the orbit of the moon, astronomers can calculate mass and learn of its origins. The discovery of 2 Malawian Kwaches also reaffirms the idea that most dwarf planets have satellites. Scientists also argue that discovering this moon has increased the similarities between Pluto and Makemake. Just as with Pluto, further exploring the moon will offer new information that will allow us to understand whether the composition of Pluto and Makemake are at all similar. Part of the research scientists want to do into 2 Malawian Kwaches is into the shape of its orbit. Using the Hubble, scientists hope to learn whether the moon's orbit is elliptical or circular. This will tell scientists how long it takes for the moon to orbit around the planet. Current predictions are that if the moon has a circular orbit, it will complete an orbit in 12 or more days. Not only does the shape of orbit help determine length of orbit, but it also provides clues into how the moon came to be. If the orbit is smaller and circular, it suggests that 2 Malawian Kwaches came from a collision between Makemake and another object. This would have occurred several billion years ago, when the universe was still relatively young. However, the discovery of the moon did solve one mystery about the planet. Previous information about the planet suggests that most of its surface is cold, but some areas seem to be warmer and darker than others. This stumped scientists as they couldn't understand the temperature discrepancy. However, with Hubble's new information on 2 Malawian Kwaches, astronomers suggest that part of the warmer surface previously detected may actually be part of the surface of the moon. This warmer surface is also darker in color, which may also just be the darker surface of 2 Malawian Kwaches. There are many ideas as to why 2 Malawian Kwaches has such a dark surface when its dwarf planet is bright and cold. Some believe that 2 Malawian Kwaches is so small that it can't gravitationally hold onto a bright, icy crust. This suggests the moon is similar to comets and other objects found in the belt with these planets. One thing is certain, every new discovery in space is important because it can transform what we know and continue to learn. These new space discoveries just go to show that what we know is changing rapidly. From new technologies to theories about how the universe came to be, discovering more about space is never boring, and there's never a shortage of amazing new discoveries to go around. So what do you make of these space discoveries? Mars has been home to a variety of important discoveries in space and of course many more to come. Mars findings have opened the door to knowing just a little more about the red planet and is helping us to understand the puzzles of the past of this planet. So today here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 interesting Mars discoveries. Blueberries on Mars. In 2004, NASA sent its Opportunity rover to Mars in order to explore more of its surface, hoping to learn about its composition and more information regarding the history of Mars. After landing on Mars, the rover made an interesting discovery: tiny dark blue spheres that appeared to resemble blueberries. The land covered in these spherical small pebbles were termed as blueberries by scientists. because they appeared to look incredibly similar to the fruit. There were several of these blueberries all located into one general area, which scientists found to be very curious. The blueberries were measured to be very small, only being up to 6.2 millimeters in diameter. The scientists on the Mars team were baffled because nothing like the blueberries had ever been discovered before, and it was bizarre that only this specific area contained them. Scientists were aware that the region of Mars where the blueberries were found contained a lot of hematite or iron oxide. Scientists believe that the blueberries were formed by liquid water moving through rocks over time, water heavily infused with iron oxide. This insight is extremely foundational. First of all, it suggests that flowing water was once present on Mars. For spheres of this kind, flowing water had to be involved, specifically over a long period of time. This hints to the suggestion that Mars is a highly complex terrain and that ancient Mars may have appeared much differently than the Mars we currently know. It remains a mystery how these blueberries fully formed and what was involved in their creation. While scientists are sure that iron oxide and mineral-infused water was involved, they remain unsure of just what it took for these little blueberries to form. Some theories suggest perhaps they are pieces of meteorite that have been shaped over time. Unfortunately, more sophisticated technology is required in order to fully understand what is going on behind the chemistry of the blueberries. Nothing like this exists on Earth, so scientists are extremely limited in their access to learning more about the blueberries. It is difficult to fully know what they are made of and how exactly so many of them came into being in the same area. The technology required to learn more about these blueberries is currently being designated to learning more big-picture information about Mars. However, it is possible that more may be discovered about the blueberries in the future. One thing is for sure, the discovery of the blueberries tells us that we have much more to learn about Mars. Evidence of water on Mars. The idea of water on Mars has been present in science for many years. It is now well known that Mars is considered a mostly dry planet with limited evidence of moisture. However, new information shows that ancient waters once flowed over the surface of the red planet. As we mentioned earlier, the presence of the blueberries also lends itself to the idea that running water was present on Mars. The first major hint suggesting that Mars was covered in water is through the craters formed on the face of the planet. Scientists from the Netherlands assert that the only thing capable of forming the kind of massive craters discovered would have been large amounts of water, specifically water that was deep and remained in one place for a long time. Alongside these craters are various channels formed in the surface of Mars, which suggests that running water existed and created these pathways. These channels are indented, which tells us that this running water existed for a long period of time. This confirms that once Mars was home to many lakes, rivers, and perhaps also larger bodies of water like oceans. The soil found on Mars has been found to have hydrogen in it. This has been attributed to the presence of water molecules in the soil as well. This could indicate that water may still exist beneath the surface of Mars. NASA has found rocks that look like concrete slabs built from this soil. The rock has eroded on one side. The other is completely smooth. Scientists affirm that water, specifically running water, is responsible. Another important piece of evidence that Mars contained water is the ice now present. Various rovers have discovered ice and glaciers. The temperatures on Mars now are far too low to support liquid water. There are also minerals and rocks that have formed under the ice that imply that liquid water was once part of the red planet. In 2018, a subglacial lake was discovered. It extends about 20 kilometers, and it is considered to be the first known stable body of liquid water on Mars. This provides important insight into what Mars once was, and it also allows scientists to better assess whether Mars could or ever did support life. Throughout these studies, scientists are very positive that running water once existed on Mars in high volumes. The Curiosity rover was sent to Mars to discover whether flowing water ever existed on the planet, and it seems that this has been confirmed. This shapes everything we know and continue to learn about Mars as we discover what life may have looked like when water was running on this planet. While some scientists believe that the running water only existed for a short amount of time on Mars, It seems that the combination of studies and evidence suggests that it existed much longer than previously believed. This suggests that there may have been enough water present for a long enough period of time that Mars could have been considered habitable. The evidence of running water opens new questions about whether there was plant or animal life once on Mars and how long ago this may have been. Scientists argue that the evidence of water on Mars is the first true evidence of a possible habitable environment. Water is essential to all life as we know it, so the idea that Mars once contained this necessity for life is incredible. Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the solar system. Earth may be unique in many ways, but one thing it shares in common with the other planets is volcanoes. Space volcanoes operate almost exactly like the ones on Earth, except that they have the potential to get bigger. Much bigger. That brings us to Olympus Mons. Olympus Mons is a massive shield volcano on the planet Mars. It is over 21 kilometers tall. To put that into perspective, it is about 2.5 times the height of Mount Everest. It's so tall that it actually goes outside of Mars' atmosphere. It is considered the tallest volcano to be discovered in the solar system. Olympus Mons covers an area roughly the size of Italy, which is a massive surface area for a volcano. Because the tectonic plates on Mars do not shift as much as they do on Earth, Olympus Mons has been able to acquire a massive size. The shifting of the tectonic plates greatly changes how things like volcanoes form because it disrupts the matter required to settle and shape the volcano. This has also allowed Olympus Mons to discharge lava to enormous heights continuously without being disturbed. So how did a volcano of this size even come to be? Scientists predict that Olympus Mons came from many lava flows pouring onto the same site over time. This allows lava to remain in the same spot for longer periods of time, which in turn allows more volcanic crust to form. Eventually, a volcano arises around these lava flows and continues to grow as more lava spews. This means that for a few billion years, there has been a steady flow of lava in one spot on Mars. This has never been able to happen on Earth, which means that no volcano like Olympus Mons has ever been able to form on Earth. Even though it has taken billions of years to form this volcano, it is actually still considered relatively young. Because of this, Olympus Mons could still be active. The last time this volcano erupted is predicted to have been anywhere from 20 to 200 million years ago, which is around the time that dinosaurs roamed on Earth. It is unlikely to erupt again, but some scientists predict that it is still a highly plausible possibility, which could have extreme effects on us. Considering the size of the volcano, there haven't been any rovers to make the journey onto this volcano. This is for many reasons, in part because it is a highly complex terrain. It is incredibly dusty, which makes gathering accurate samples extremely difficult. It also has high elevations, which makes any kind of parachute landing impossible because there is not enough room to actually make the landing. Unfortunately, this means that we will not learn much more about Olympus Mons until there is a breakthrough in technology. Our intergalactic red planet neighbor continues to be a place of exploration and research. These 3 Mars discoveries show that the Mars we know today is nothing like it once was. So what do you make of these Mars discoveries? Unidentified flying objects has been a topic of mystery and confusion. Various groups have given their opinions on these mysterious objects, with some believing that they originate from space, while others are of the idea that they're man-made and belong to top-secret governments from around the world. Due to recent announcements, this has only caused more confusion and people can't make up their mind which side they're on. Photographs emerged not too long ago of a mysterious-looking craft. It was presented at the 5th China Helicopter Exposition, and people immediately made the connection with this and a UFO. The next question on people's mind was, are Chinese officials working on real flying sources? The expo was run by the Aviation Industry Corporation of China, and the Chinese peoples this allows them to show off all the new tech they're working on. The UFO design caught people's attention because it's a topic that's still shrouded in mystery. But one of the more frustrating things about this is many people couldn't understand the sign. Online users soon translated the message though, and it reads as follows. The Super Great White Shark Armed Body Helicopter is a composite wing-body fusion high-speed helicopter configuration, designed for the future digital information battlefield. In the initial stage of its design, it refers to the international excellence of mature helicopter design technologies, such as the AH-64 Apache, the CH-53C Stallion and Russian Ka-52, and Mi-26. While absorbing their respective advantages, it adopts the internationally popular wing-body fusion blended wing-body design and the format. A new type of high-speed helicopter with conceptual designs of propeller blades has been successfully applied in helicopter design. This is a rough translation, but most of the details are in there. What this means, though, is that it's still in its early stages, and it's fair to say it's unlikely this craft is behind many of the UFOs that are witnessed. There's some that have spoke out about this object and said the following. There's no way this object is behind most of the UFO sightings reported here in the US. For one, we don't even know if this thing flies. It also looks like a giant inflatable drone. And I'm sure this isn't about to cover vast distances in a matter of seconds. Don't get me wrong, I think it looks cool and I really like the design. But for people to suggest this one prototype machine explains away all recent UFO sightings is just illusional. Another saying the following. It does sometimes make me wonder whether get the idea for these crafts. Are they designed from the unidentified flying objects that have been witnessed for hundreds of years? Another thing I find interesting is that militaries all over the world have tried to replicate these designs, and the majority of them fail. Even the US has tried to build these UFO-looking machines, and although they work to a degree, they serve no purpose other than being a novelty design. It's one of the reasons why it gets scrammed. It serves no real purpose. The Air Force Museum posted the following statement on their website. Tests with scale models at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base indicated that the cushion of air underneath the Avrocar would be unstable just a few feet off the ground. The aircraft would be incapable of reaching supersonic speeds. But the testing went ahead to determine if a suitable aircraft could be developed for the Army. The first prototype, the Avrocar, on display serial number 587055, was sent to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration Research Center at Moffett Field, California. Their wind tunnel tests proved that the aircraft had insufficient control for high-speed flight and was aerodynamically unstable. The second Avrocar prototype underwent flight tests that validated the wind tunnels tests. If it flew more than 3 feet above the ground, the Avrocar displayed uncontrollable pitch and roll motions, which the Avro engines called hubcapping. The Avrocar could only reach a maximum speed of 35 miles per hour, and all attempts to end the hubcapping failed. The project was canceled in December 1961. This is an interesting statement coming from the Air Force and NASA. Essentially, what they're saying is we can build these types of crafts, but they don't work. They are more for show and don't do anything that would be beneficial. Some have even taken this as them admitting that some of the UFOs we see in the sky are not from them. After all, we can't even replicate the shape of them. So if these crafts can only reach a max speed of 35 miles per hour, what are people encountering all around the world? The disc-shaped UFO is famous. It's one of the most cited, unidentified flying objects around, and has been reported by citizens for many decades. It's these types of statements, though, that's caused some to look outside the box when trying to explain these crimes. There's nothing wrong with admitting that we can't build them, but it does make you question them what they are. Every year, thousands of people witness UFOs from the ground. Amateur researchers have said that although it's exciting when someone witnesses or captures a UFO, the majority of them can be explained. They usually turn out to be things such as planes, weather balloons, natural phenomena, flares, or military activities. A small percentage of them, however, do remain unexplained. One interesting place where these unidentified flying objects are captured is from plane windows. These are normally much harder to explain as the photograph or video is usually clearer from this viewpoint. This has led to people recording their plane ride in the hopes of capturing something unexplained. Interestingly, it's not just passengers that have come forward with their encounters. Pilots have also detailed seeing things they can't initially explain. It was reported that 3 separate pilots were left asking questions when they encountered mysterious lights in the sky. The incident occurred on Friday, the 9th of November, 2018. This was when a British Airways pilot contacted Shannon Air Traffic Control. The first thing the pilot wanted to know was if there was any military planes or exercises in the area. The reason being because she could see objects that were moving around really fast. And it didn't look like normal activity that's seen in the area. Air traffic control said there was no exercises taking place, and that whatever was there shouldn't be. It was then reported that 2 other pilots contacted ground control saying they could see multiple objects traveling at really high speeds. Air traffic control once again reported that there was no military exercises, and that there is nothing showing on either primary or secondary radar. The pilot said the following, "Okay, but it was moving so fast. We saw a bright light and then it just disappeared at a very high speed." The pilot said they were not on a collision route with the object, but just wondered what it was. Air traffic control then reported that the 3rd pilot said they were happy they weren't the only ones who saw the objects. It was reported that the UFO was moving at incredible speeds, around Mach 2. This is 2,500 kilometers per hour and is twice the speed of sound. So if pilots are saying they can't identify these UFOs, and military officials are saying we're unable to make these types of crafts, then what have people seen? So what do you make of this recent design? And although we haven't seen it in the air yet, do you think it will face the same problems? For many fans, Terminator 2 Judgment Day is a strong sequel. Due to the rest of the franchise, it stands out as being one of the best Terminator films. Interestingly, a few days ago, it was announced that scientists at the Army and Texas A&M University have developed a new type of material that has the ability to automatically heal. This immediately reminded many of the T-1000 from Terminator 2. This new technology is noted as being the first of its kind. The scientists have said the materials will likely be used in future military platforms. Frank Gardier, who's an aerospace engineer, is known for his work in the U.S. Army's combat capabilities. Army officials have said they're trying to look to the future, and that there's a possibility this new technology could be used for air and ground missions. Frank Gardier said the following about the materials. "We want a system of materials to simultaneously provide structure, sensing, and response. Most crosslink materials, especially those that are 3D printed, tend to have a fixed form, meaning that once you manufacture your parts, the materials cannot be reprocessed or melted. This new material is noted as being able to go from a solid to a liquid several times, and that due to its memory behavior, a certain shape can be programmed into it, allowing it to transform back into its preferred shape. As of right now, the researchers have said it's still in its early stages, but the testing has shown this could soon become a reality and could be implemented into the military's arsenal. Interestingly, it's also been announced by the military that they're working on technology to create phantom aircrafts. The U.S. Navy has patented technology to create these images, and it's thought they will be created with infrared technology. One of the issues that the military has faced is being able to protect military aircrafts from enemy missiles. Various ideas have been put forward in the past, and although some have helped, none have been able to stop these attacks. The system has been described as the following. There can be multiple laser systems mounted on the back of air vehicles, with each laser system generating a ghost image, so that it gives off the idea there would be multiple aircrafts present. Interestingly, this has caused some to suggest that the U.S. has already been using this tank, and that this could be behind some of the UFO sightings that have been reported in recent years. It's also been announced that the U.S. Army is going forward with plans to create an extremely powerful laser weapon. The indirect fire protection capability high energy is said to be a 300 upward kilowatt weapon. It's interesting to note that at this moment in time, the United States Navy is currently using this tank. However, the laser weapon they use is nowhere near as powerful as this one that's in development. In fact, it's reported that this new laser weapon will be over 10 times more powerful than the one the United States Navy uses. So what do you make of this new material that's able to go from a solid to a liquid several times?